Hello, everyone. I know I had a lot of questions when I decided to move to Canada. How is the weather going to be like? Can I get authentic Gary to eat? Do I need to pack Gary when I'm coming? Do I need to put yam in my bag? How is the do I need to buy a jacket or I need to buy a jacket when I'm here? How will I get a house to rent, a room to rent? What do I need to be able to adjust? I know I had all these questions, but then I was fortunate enough to know people already who connected me and were able to answer some of my questions. And so today we are going to give you tips and strategies to survive when or to be able to settle when you arrive in Canada, especially within this time during COVID, where most of the settlement agencies are working from home and people can't meet you face to face. You are welcome once again to our monthly meeting with Afri-can Connect. So this month we are talking about tips and strategies to be able to settle. We did a COVID relief support. We've also gotten funding to do Christmas hampers. More details will be coming up. So if you've been affected by COVID, we are going to give Christmas hampers to those food hampers to those who have been affected by COVID, so that you can also celebrate Christmas without thinking about the impact of COVID too much on yourself. Today, I have a personal friend here to speak with us. His name is Bamidele Salako. He's an experienced multi-platform communications professional with cross-functional experience in print and broadcast journalism, integrated marketing communications in the non-profit sector. He currently works with one of Canada's largest immigrant-serving non-profits, Calgary Catholic Immigration Society, CIS. A lot of people moving to Calgary will hear about CCIS as a pre-arrival settlement advisor in the Settlement Online Pre-Arrival Program, otherwise known as SOPA. He was previously deputy editor of African's foremost celebrity magazine, Ovation International, and an analyst with public relations consultancy, MSL Quadrant. He's the founder of Couples of Zugavel, an arts and humanities project that spotlights the love stories of married and engaged couples who meet on social media. Bamidele volunteers for courses involving youth education, settlement and integration, support for immigrants, promotion of arts and culture, and welfare for indigent communities in his home country of Nigeria. So we are so privileged to have Bamidele talk to us about some of the tips and strategies that he knows about or he offers to people in the work that he does. Thank you so much, Bamidele, and you have the floor. But before you go, please, if you have any questions and you are joining us on Zoom, please put them in the chat session. We will ask Bamidele and he will answer to his best ability of his abilities. If you're on Facebook, please put them on our Facebook chat and send to me. As usual, if you see me look on my phone, I'm just looking at questions to ask our guests. If you're on here with us on Zoom, can you please mute yourself so that we don't get echo or feedback? Thank you so much, Bamidele. I'm really honored to have you.
Thank
I have
you.
worked with you before, and I know that you are very good at what you do. And
Stop
so,
from this video.
to the African Connect, it's a privilege to have you share your knowledge with people who want to move to Canada. You have the floor.
Thank you so much, Anima. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks to everyone who has joined in from across the world. I hope you will find some of the tips and strategies that I'll be sharing in the course of this session to be useful for you as you move to Canada, shortly before you do, and obviously after you land in Canada. Now, just to be clear, this is not a how to move to Canada session or how to relocate to Canada session, because I find a lot of people sort of misunderstanding the purpose for this meeting. It's actually a how to settle in Canada session. So it's for individuals who are already planning to begin the application process towards immigrating to Canada, or individuals who have already been approved by IRCC to immigrate to Canada under any of the immigration streams. And so the tips I'll be sharing will be most useful to individuals who are either planning to begin their application or individuals who have been approved to move to Canada soon, and individuals who have newly arrived but have not been able to access settlement services in their respective destination cities. So to begin with, everyone sees relocating, moving abroad, as a sort of a quest for the golden fleece. Everyone believes that moving abroad automatically sets you up for success. While that may be true in the sense that first world countries like Canada offer professionals from around the world numerous opportunities for them to self-actualize, for them to fulfill their career aspirations, you do have to know how to go about things before you're guaranteed success. Success is not automatic. You need knowledge, you need information, you need support. I'm thankful for a country like Canada that provides all the support in the world for immigrants to settle into whatever city they land in Canada and to integrate successfully into their careers in this country. It's amazing. I always tell people that I don't think there's any other first country in the world that offers the wealth of support that Canada offers to immigrant professionals. Not just immigrant professionals, even refugees, across the board, immigrants across the board, Canada has a wealth of support that it provides for newcomers, for immigrants who are about to relocate to Canada. And I'll be touching on some of those things as we go through the session. So the first thing I want to talk about is that it's very important that you manage your expectations. When you're moving to Canada, it's very important that you manage your expectations. Now, in the course of my work, I have the privilege of interacting with professionals from all across the world, and I mean almost every country in the world, daily. And many of them are individuals at the pinnacle of their careers in their home countries. You're talking about people in management positions, people who have like a record of 10 to 20 years, working in a particular sector where they've developed, sector expertise. They have institutional knowledge of the companies that they work with. It's just amazing the things people have accomplished in their home countries. But for some reason, either for political instability, unrest, even for, the prospects of being able to access better economic opportunities in Canada, they decide to relocate to this country. Now, many of them would usually think, some of them, well, maybe not many of them, but some of them would usually think that because of the wealth of industry experience that they've been able to amass from their home countries, they would come to Canada and find employers basically rolling over themselves to offer them opportunities. And now, for some of them who have these lofty expectations for the initial phase of landing, what they find when they come usually turns out to be the exact opposite of what they expected. And it becomes a rude shock for them. It's a rude awakening. And it sort of upsets their balance, it upsets their mind. It can lead to frustration. They slip into a hole of negativity, and that can affect their entire settlement experience. It can have far-reaching consequences that will last years and years, which is why it's very important that immigrant professionals who are moving to Canada manage their expectations. While it is true that Canada does have a wealth of economic opportunities available for immigrants from around the world, which is why the country is opening up for immigrants to come here. I just shared the news before I came on Facebook from Al Jazeera that sort of said that Canada is thinking of bringing in 1.3 million immigrants in the next 3 years. So there are opportunities. Canada has a minuscule population compared to countries like mine, Nigeria. The population of Canada is perhaps just the population of Lagos, which is like the commercial nerve center of Nigeria. So they need people to, build Canada, to develop the economy. Hello, can you hear me? Someone muted me. Okay, so they need people who will leverage, some of these economic opportunities that are opening up as they're beginning to attract investors into the country. So those opportunities are there, but you have to understand that you're coming from a different country. with a different culture, and that there are, in this country you're coming to in Canada, there are domestic, local perceptions, prevailing perceptions that employers will have about immigrants from different countries. Industry standards, for example, will differ from your home country, even though it's the same industry, but standards may differ. Then there are occupations that are called regulated occupations. So these are occupations that you cannot work in until you become a certified member of a certain professional association or an industry regulator. So these are some of the issues that you have to be aware of, when you're making the move to Canada. Another thing is that you might not find commensurate employment in Canada. If you're a manager, back home and you're coming to Canada, there is the likelihood, there's the possibility, it's not impossible that you will find commensurate employment, but there's also you have to make room for the possibility that you may need to start from an entry level position, albeit in the same industry. So once you're aware of this, some of the what could present as shocks to newcomers in Canada would not, sort of upset you as much as it would someone who did not prepare for those eventualities. Now, for example, in Nigeria, we have oil and gas engineers. Alberta, where I live, Calgary, Alberta, is like the oil and gas capital of Canada. So we have a lot of oil and gas professionals from abroad moving to Alberta. Now, in Nigeria, we have a lot of oil and gas engineers who earn as much as about $15,000 a month. I'm talking about in Nigeria, not here, who earn about $15,000 a month in Nigeria. Now, what $15,000 a month can do for you in Nigeria is not the same thing that $15,000 a month will do for you here in Canada. Now, with $15,000 a month in Nigeria, you have a driver, you have maids, not even a maid, you have probably two maids, you have a security guard at your gate. So you actually have employees. You're an employee yourself, but you also have employees, who are working with you. There's a certain level of comfort that you have earning that amount of money in Nigeria. But in Canada, you can't do that. Perhaps you're paying the people working with you pittances in Nigeria. You're paying maybe 20,000 naira or 30,000 naira or 50,000 naira a month. So it doesn't really take anything away from you. But here, you have minimum wage. You have labor laws that are enforced, and then you have minimum wage. So you cannot go below a certain amount when you're paying people working with you. You will run foul of labor laws and you will get into trouble. So people have to prepare for the fact that there are a lot of things that you had help for in Nigeria that you will have to do by yourself here in Canada. There will be no maids washing your clothes, tending to your children, all of those things. There will be no one you can send to do your grocery shopping. There's a whole lot of things that you will now have to do for yourself, especially at the initial stages. So that you must be mindful of. Then it may not be possible for you to get a managerial, say you're a manager in Nigeria or Ghana or anywhere in the world, and then you come to Canada, you may not be able to secure a managerial position initially. You may eventually, but you won't initially, or you may not initially. In fact, there's a higher likelihood that you won't initially. And the reason is because, one, if you work in a regulated occupation, you will have to go through the ropes. There's no that you can't, there's no escaping that. If you don't work in a regulated occupation, but you do not have Canadian experience, then the priority for you will be at least to get a foot in the door, either through an entry level job, or any other kind of job in the same field, not necessarily a managerial role, that will acquaint you with industry standards in that occupation in Canada. And then that will acquaint you with the modus operandi of whatever company you're working for. And then as you do that, and you become familiar with processes, procedures, people in your industry, in your organization, as opportunities open up internally, it becomes easier for you to move into managerial positions or higher positions than you began with. Then if you've already worked in an entry level position and you have Canadian resume, I mean experience, that becomes an asset that you can use on your resume to apply for opportunities that open up either in the same company or other companies in your industry. What counts is that you've taken that important first step to gain Canadian experience and then to position yourself for future opportunities. So it's very important to have that at the back of your mind, that the initial stages, try to not lower your expectations, apply for those managerial positions that you feel are commensurate with what you did back home, but keep your mind open, keep an open mind, and whatever presents initially, take it. I have a friend. I'll be giving a lot of illustrations, so I'm talking from people's experiences. So I have a friend who was a client of our program, super program, but is now a friend, who worked for 12 years in the banking industry in Nigeria and then moved here. Now, he saw a managerial position online on a job site to one of the biggest banks in Canada, and he applied for the role. And so he went for the interview and he aced the interview. He actually aced the interview. How did he know? The HR professional, the recruiter who interviewed him, actually told him that you were, of all the candidates that interviewed for this position, you were the best. That was what the recruiter told him. He said, but we cannot hire you for this position because you don't have Canadian experience. He said, so we've decided, because none of the other candidates impressed us as much as you did, we've decided to promote someone internally into that position. So are you willing to occupy the position that the person we're promoting, is going to be vacating? And he said yes. He was going to, he didn't hesitate to say he was going to take that position, and he did. And within months, he got in, he impressed on the job. Within months, he was promoted to the same role he had initially applied for. So that happens a lot. You will see this to be a common thread with a lot of professionals in Canada. They will share this kind of stories with you that probably, most of them would say, I started in this role, in this lower role, but with time I got in, I impressed, and I got promotions once, twice. That happens a lot. So very key, first point, manage your expectations and be prepared. Hope for the best, but prepare for every eventuality. So that's the first point. The second point is your mindset. Mindset is your biggest asset when you're making this move to Canada. I like, some people always say that it's not as though you go abroad and almost immediately you're picking dollars on the streets of Canada, of the US. No, it doesn't happen that way, right? So there will be initial challenges that you face. There are some inevitable hurdles that every newcomer will face in Canada. There are certain pitfalls you will encounter if you have limited information, but there are some hurdles that are inevitable for everyone, regardless of whether you have all the information in the world or not. So your mindset is your biggest asset. It's a big move. People tend to minimize just the magnitude of actually upping and leaving your comfort zone, everything you've been used to, your family, your friends, your career network, all your professional accomplishments back home. You're leaving a country where you probably have never had to. I've met with a lot of people who have not applied for a job in over 10 years. People who have always been recommended for positions, people who have always been headhunted. And then they come here and then they apply for 100 jobs and they don't get a call back. And all of a sudden their confidence deflates from, here to there. Everything just goes down in an instant. So it's very important that you have your mind in the right place at all times. Positivity works, negativity sucks. You have to stay positive. You have to have your eyes on the goal. You have to be mindful of what you're trying to achieve and know that whatever difficulty or challenge you encounter at the beginning of your relocation to Canada is temporary. Very important that it's temporary. You need one to stay away from negative people. You're going to find a lot of negative people who have become frustrated, who are going to say, oh, why did you leave your country to come to Canada? You're going to suffer in Canada. Look at me. I came here 20 years ago. I don't have a job. Those kinds of things. You're going to encounter people like that, but those are the exact people that you want to stay away from. When I came almost 2 years ago, I mean, almost 3 years ago now, when I came, I made a deliberate decision to surround myself with people who will reaffirm my decision, people who will be like a solid support system around me and fuel my optimism, not people who will feed my fears, but people who will feed my optimism. And that was what I did. And everyone I know in my circle, maybe I'm living in a bubble, but everyone I know in my circle has had it good in Canada. Everyone I came to Canada with, around the same time, many of whom are my friends now, and many that I have worked with on the SOPA program who have moved to Canada in the last 2.5 years, most of them, at least the ones that I'm still in touch with that I know for sure, are doing exceptionally well. In fact, many of them have bought their own houses. They've moved into their own houses. I'm talking about in just over 2 years of coming to Canada. Many of them are doing well professionally in well-paying jobs, right? So it's going to get better. It may be challenging initially, but it will get better. I'll give the illustration of a friend who was a lawyer in Nigeria. Now, she came. Obviously, she couldn't practice immediately because she had to do some examinations, then do the articling and all of that to be recertified as a lawyer to practice here. And so, excuse me. So that became, obviously an issue that she had to go through all of those exams, and she did. But she was trying to find what we call transitional jobs, or what other people would call survival jobs. And even survival jobs were hard to come by for her, right? She couldn't even get any kind, even a clerk job, a data entry job, or even an admin, job. She couldn't get any of those jobs, right? So it was such a for 4 months in a row. It was almost becoming a frustrating experience. Good thing for her, her husband got a job like a month or so after arriving, but she couldn't get a job. And then by the fifth month, I believe, by the fifth month, she had two job offers with amazing employers. One of them is always on Canada, is always on the list of Canada's best places to work, if you're familiar with that list. So she got two job offers. She took one. While she was doing that job, she got another job offer with Canada Revenue Agency. So like three offers came in just 1 month after having waited for 4 months and nothing had happened. But the thing about her was that she kept positive. She kept going for networking events. She kept meeting people. She took advantage of mentorship programs. You know, she took advantage of settlement services. She was very active. She wasn't passive. She stayed positive. And, that sort of showed in her interactions with people in the industry who referred her, who recommended her for some of these positions that she then took advantage of. So it's very important to stay positive when you first land in Canada. I tell you another example. There was a lady who was an IT professional in her country. At CCIS, we have an IT bridging program, for professionals who had worked in IT in their home countries, but have not been able to secure a job, or who had secured a job but had now lost their jobs. So we have such a program just to sort of re-equip them with, current cutting edge skills in the industry that they can use to relaunch their careers in Canada. And so it's a very competitive program, and they do a recruitment. You go through a recruitment process, interviews and all of that. So there was this lady who had been in Canada for a while and had not secured a job, but she had slipped into negativity. And once you allow that to happen, you cannot hide it. It becomes obvious to everyone who is observing you. And so what happened was, when she was going through the recruitment process, my colleague who did the recruitment was telling me later that she did not select the lady because negativity was oozing out of her. That it was just obvious, and that she didn't want anyone who would come into class and infect the other, immigrant professionals in class. So that became an issue for the lady. She lost out on an opportunity to participate in that program that would have bridged her experience and given her an opportunity to secure a job in IT, because that program has a high success rate, 80% employment for everyone who goes to that program. At least if you have 10 in the class, at least 8 of them get employed immediately after the program. So she missed out on that opportunity. Why? Because she had become negative. When you become negative, you don't see opportunities. You become blind to opportunities. Opportunities could be staring you in the face and you won't know, because now you're frustrated, you're angry at everything, you're angry at everyone, and then you're not helping yourself. It becomes counterintuitive, it becomes counterproductive. I give another example. When I first came to Calgary, I had a friend that I went to school together. He moved to Saskatchewan a year before I came to Calgary. And then he called me just to encourage me that it might be challenging at first, but things will start to even out after a while. So he told me the story of his uncle who hosted him when he came to Canada. Now, the uncle was a project manager in oil and gas in Nigeria. And then he came here. He was a big boy, earning a lot of money. Then he came here, and for about the first 4 months, he could not secure a job in oil and gas. And this was even at the time when there was a boom in the oil and gas industry, when Alberta was booming and buzzing. That was when he came, but still he couldn't secure a job. And then he had to work in a McDonald's. He sold burgers, things I'm sure he never imagined that he will do in his life, but he did it. He kept a very positive attitude, positive disposition. He continued to apply, he continued to network until eventually he got an interview with the city of Edmonton, and he was hired as a project manager. Now, he's handling multi-billion dollar projects for the city of Edmonton, and he's a project manager. So things may not work out initially as you planned, but you want to keep your positive disposition, your positive outlook, because it's just a question of time. You stay focused on your goal, you do what you need to do temporarily, to take care of your family, pay your bills, do what you need to do. No issues with that, but stay focused on your goal. Don't allow yourself to slip into negativity. Surround yourself with a solid support system of people that will encourage you, that will affirm you, that will let you know that even though you're not getting interviews or you're not getting hired, it's not because there's anything wrong with you. You've got what it takes to succeed. So you need those kinds of words to keep you going during those first few months of landing. So first, manage your expectations. Second, your mindset is your biggest asset. Third, networking. Networking, networking. One cannot mention this enough. If you talk to 10 professionals, and this is no exaggeration, if you talk to maybe 10 professionals in Canada, at least 8 of them will tell you that the role they're currently occupying, it was either that they were recommended by someone working at the company or someone who knows someone working at the company, or they were known to the hiring manager. So networking is a big deal in Canada. If you're someone who doesn't find it comfortable interacting with total strangers, it's something you're going to have to learn. Networking is not a nice to have skill in Canada, it's a must have skill. You have to go out of your comfort zone and interact with people at social events, at professional networking events, at your ethnocultural community events. At if you're a religious person, at your religious centers, you just have to go out and network, meet with people, let them know what you're doing, let them know you're looking for an opportunity, those kinds of things. The reason is 80% of jobs in Canada are not advertised. Now, Enimwa and I, we used to work together in the same organization before she left. Um, she knows that we have a staff portal where vacancies are advertised internally. So these vacancies never get to job sites, right? So we had over 300 employees, in the organization. So definitely one of us would know someone who's looking for a job, and then we would recommend them for the job, right? So right? So that's what usually happens with most companies across Canada. In fact, if you're applying for a job online, you will most likely see a section on the job online job application where you're asked, were you referred or recommended by an employee of this organization? If your answer is yes, they'll tell you to state the employee number. So it's very important that you're interacting with people, because that's the only way you can access employment opportunities in the hidden job market. It's very key that you're networking. You develop social capital that you can leverage, for your job search. Even when you start to work, networking doesn't stop, because you don't have control over everything. You might lose your job. There might be an economic crunch and you lose your job. What will come in handy for you, what will make sure that you're not out of a job long, is the social capital you've developed over time. You can then leverage that, to secure a job in your field quicker than you would have if you didn't have any network you can fall back on. So it's very important that you're mindful of that networking. I had a friend, I have a friend who, also I meet with a lot of people working in banking abroad. So he came to Calgary and he tried to find a job with one of the banks. He couldn't secure a job. And then what he did was to go on LinkedIn, and he found someone who was a regional manager at one of the big banks here, and sent him a message, introduced himself, brief background, and told him what he was looking for. Like, I've been trying to apply for jobs, I just need your advice, I need your counsel on how I can get into the banking industry here. And then luckily for him, or fortunately, when the individual responded, he responded cordially, and they had a good exchange. And the next thing he said was, please send your resume to this email address. And he did that. So within that week, he got a call from the bank inviting him for an interview. And the same week, he got a job. And he had been looking for a job for 4 months without success. He had been applying randomly online without success to the same bank, and he didn't get a job. But one referral from the regional manager of the bank that he met on LinkedIn, and he got the job. So it's very important that you are aware of this, that applying online, while that is a job search strategy, is not necessarily the most effective job search strategy. It's usually a combination of strategies that leads to your desired employment outcomes. Usually a combination of strategies. You're applying online, you're networking here, you're volunteering there, you're participating in mentorship programs. Your mentor could refer you for an opportunity. They could leverage their own connections to open doors for you. So it's a combination of these things. Networking, very important. The fourth, soft skills. Soft skills. Now, a lot of immigrants tend to place a premium on hard skills over soft skills. As far as many of us are concerned, once I'm good at my job, it doesn't matter. Nothing else matters. Once I can demonstrate that I've got the technical expertise, to deliver on the job, that's it. When they get to Canada, they have a root shock. Another story, there was a guy who was even fortunate enough to get a team lead position as his first job in Canada, shortly after landing. And what happens? It transfers the toxic work culture that, he had sort of perpetuated back home to Canada. And then what happened was all of the guys on his team started to complain. The complaints, HR was receiving endless complaints of workplace bullying, harassment, and all sorts. So people were saying they were having mental health issues because this guy was a problem. And then, at a point, they had to let him go. So I tell people, like, a lot of the things that happen in other non-Canadian, Western countries in workplaces are actually regarded as workplace bullying here. There are labor laws here, and if you're fortunate to be working with an employer that takes those labor laws seriously, or you're working in a team or department because within organizations, departments can have their own subcultures, which can, even if the overall organization has a very great culture, there may be a subculture being managed by a toxic boss. So if you're lucky to have an organization where the overall culture is great, and then you have a CEO or division managers or things like that who take, workplace violations, labor rights violations very seriously, then no one who engages in that gets away with it. Here you could lose your job because of that. So it's very important that people have great soft skills. What are soft skills? Things like your ability to handle and manage conflict effectively, because if you're working with others, it's inevitable that conflict will arise. What's important is that you've learned the skills, the strategies that can help you manage conflict situations so they do not de-escalate into crisis. How well do you get along, with your colleagues? Very important. You have to have great collaborative skills, be able to, contribute to team initiatives without being intrusive, you respecting the cultures, the beliefs of others, being able to work with people who are different from you. Whereas back home, you might want to take a stone, and stone someone who is a member of the LGBTQ community because they're gay. But here, you cannot do that. You are required to respect the rights of members of the LGBTQ community, whether you believe in it or not, whether you like them or not. If you want to keep a job, then you just have to abide by those regulations. You're not going to stone a member of the LGBTQ or insult them, or say something offensive to them just because your personal beliefs or your religion does not align with their own personal choices. So those are things you need to be mindful of. You will need to have intercultural competence because, again, Canadian places are multicultural. So you have people from different cultural backgrounds, different religious backgrounds. So you're going to be working with people across cultures. So it's very important that you know to say or do things that won't be considered offensive to people who are not from the same culture as you. Of course, there will be feedback. Feedback is a big part of the Canadian workplace. So how you handle feedback, not all feedback will be complimentary. You won't always get praise, for what you do. There will be uncomplimentary feedback. So how you handle that is very important for your growth and success in a career workplace. And in fact, 70% of most job interviews you go for will be focused on assessing you for your soft skills. That is no exaggeration. They will ask you, apart from just 30% will be dedicated to asking you general questions and technical questions to assess your hard skills. Most of the questions you'll be asked in a job interview in Canada are behavioral and situational questions. They will ask you questions to see how you've behaved in the past in certain situations. Those are behavioral questions. Then they will ask you situational questions where they paint scenarios for you and ask you how you will respond, react, or behave in that scenario if you were to find yourself in that scenario, if you were to be hired. So those questions are being asked to assess you for cultural fit. They want to see, Canadian employers believe that you can learn hard skills. You can be trained for hard skills, but it's more difficult to change your personality, to change who you are, which is why they will spend time assessing you for your soft skills to be certain that you're not going to come in and become a toxic person, in that work culture. You're not going to come in and poison the work culture. You're going to be an important contribution rather that will build the culture that they already have in place. So that's very important. Soft skills are considered more important even than your experience, your academic qualifications, and all of that. Very important. In fact, it's one of the things that underlie the insistence on having Canadian experience. When you hear Canadian experience, it's not really about if you've done a particular kind of work in Canada. It's more like, have you functioned in a Canadian workplace to acquaint yourself with the expectations of Canadian employers, the expectations of a typical Canadian workplace? Can you acclimatize to the way we do things, the way we give feedback? Are you going to get angry maybe because you were a manager in your country and someone who only has a diploma is giving you instructions here in Canada? Are you going to react badly to that? Those kinds of things are the things that employers are looking out for when they want to hire you. So you want to place a premium on soft skills just as much as you do on your technical expertise. Now, the fifth consideration, as we begin to tone down, is if you're still outside of Canada, choosing a destination city. Choosing a destination city is very important to your success in Canada. Now, some individuals, they just like the glamour and allure and the sound of Toronto, Vancouver, some of these places, but they do not take time to study, the important factors that can aid your settling into those cities, like cost of living, very important. I've seen a number of people who went to Toronto or went to Vancouver and then could not secure a job, and then they expended almost close to expending their savings, and then they are pressured into relocating into other cities that offer a lower cost of living. So, cost of living is one of the major considerations when you want to move to a city. What is the cost of rent? If you have kids, what's the cost of childcare? Because childcare for a single child in most big Canadian cities is almost like a second rent, even in some cities more expensive than rent. So you want to be aware, of things like that: cost of rent, cost of um, childcare, and then cost of other things, utilities, gas, all the other things that you will need to settle in, into a city. You want to be very sure that you have all the accurate, essential information that you need regarding cost of living in that city. Then the labor market in the city you're headed to. Does the city offer sufficient, an adequate number of job opportunities in your field? It's not enough to just choose a city because you have friends there. It's not enough to just choose a city because you have family there, even though family support can be important in your settlement experience, but it's not as important as you going to a city and being able to access job opportunities. In this, if your family is living in a city where perhaps even a remote town or something where the predominant activity in that place is perhaps agriculture, and you are maybe a lawyer or a banker and they have no banks, or they have just one community bank in the place, it defeats the entire purpose of you coming to Canada, because you're going to struggle there are no even jobs to begin with in your field that there are no opportunities for you to explore. So what you want to do is go to a city, do your research, labor market research, go to a city offering sufficient number of job opportunities or related job opportunities, in your field. And if you're thinking of making a transition, then look at the city that offers, emerging opportunities in emerging occupations. Maybe you're open to making a transition. You're not fixated on working in the same industry that you worked before you came to Canada. So what you want to do is identify a city that is offering a good number of opportunities in alternative career paths that you would like to explore after you land in Canada. Very important. Educational opportunities also key. If the primary goal for you is to come and immediately go to school, then you want to identify um, a city with a school that is offering a reputable school, that is offering the educational opportunities that you seek. Very important. So those are the things to consider when you're choosing a destination city. Um, the sixth point is career flexibility. Now, you have to be flexible because you make, for example, in Alberta, which is the oil and gas capital of Canada, the industry has been in a tailspin, obviously, because there's been a crash in oil prices. There was a recession that hit this province because of that. And a lot of people lost their jobs. A lot of oil and gas companies, energy companies, they laid off workers. So there's a whole lot of experienced, you know, oil and gas professionals out there on the job market looking for jobs who have not been able to secure jobs. So if you're an oil and gas professional, you come in here, it's not guaranteed that because this is the oil and gas capital of Canada that you're going to secure a job in oil and gas immediately, or if ever, or eventually even. It might be difficult for you. So you have to be flexible, in your options, your career options. You have to widen the field of opportunity for yourself. You have to identify other areas of interest that you might be open to exploring, so that you're not out of a job for too long. I can share a story of a lady who worked in oil and gas and came to Alberta, Calgary to be specific, and she couldn't secure a job for about 4 months. After she came here, she wasn't even getting an interview. It was that bad. So what she did, we had told her on the SOPA program about a women in technology training program that is available to women for free in Calgary. And so she took advantage of that program and decided to transition to IT, to a technology career. And so she did that. It was an in-class training that also offered the opportunity to gain Canadian work experience after the in-class training. And so she did all of that. Right now, I mean, it was challenging while that was going on, obviously, because she wasn't working, and she got a grant from government, so she was living off government grants while she was doing all of this. And then eventually, she was after the program, she secured a high paying IT job. I mean, she's currently now in a high paying IT job here in Calgary. And when we met last time, we met in person before COVID-19 happened, she said that that decision to transition to IT was the best decision she made, after arriving in Canada. Like, that's the best decision she ever made, in fact. So you have to leave your options open. I worked in the media, in Nigeria before I came here, but now I work in nonprofit. I had no nonprofit experience before I came here. Everything I now know, I learned on the job here in Canada. So you have to be flexible, and give yourself the opportunity to explore. There's a whole lot that you can do if you just give yourself wings and allow yourself fly. There are a lot of hidden talents, hidden latent skills that are yet to find expression in you. So if you're finding it difficult securing a job after you land in your own field, then you just might want to widen the field of opportunity and start to consider other career paths, other industries that you can explore, and you just never know. You might make a huge success of yourself, in that field. And then finally, settlement services. Now, the Canadian government has been gracious enough, to invest a lot of money, a lot of funds, a lot of resources in settlement supports to make sure that the transition of immigrants to Canada is as seamless as possible. So you want to take advantage, of those supports that are available to you. So as soon as I think in the process, for those who are yet to land, who are in the process of applying or who have already applied, um, at a point you get a letter from IRCC inviting you to receive pre-arrival services, or once you've received like a biometric instruction letter, or you've received an instruction to go ahead with medicals or something like that. Once you have a UCI, it's called a UCI. Once you have that unique identification number, you can go ahead and register for settlement services pre-arrival. So those services like SOPA, the Settlement Online Pre-Arrival Program, provides immigrant professionals who are about to move to Canada. It's a nationwide program available in all the provinces to help you prepare for the move. You're provided with settlement information that is city specific, destination specific. You're provided with employment resources that are city specific. You also access employment counseling, one on one individualized online employment counseling to help you prepare for your occupation in Canada. Then we have preparatory courses that we offer on job search, on soft skills to help you develop skills to for social interactions in the workplace. workplace communication, how you make formal presentations at work, how you participate in meetings, workplace meetings. We have programs to help you handle complex conversations, difficult conversations that occur in the workplace, like feedback. We have programs to train you for networking. So all of this is available all for free to you. You're not paying a dime, for these services. So those services, there are programs that are like the National Connector program that helps immigrant professionals with their networking. At least they promise that they will connect you with at least 2 or 3 professionals in the same industry as you before you land in Canada, with the aim that whatever interactions you're able to develop with those individuals will expose you to meaningful job opportunities in your field after you land. You have Canada Infonet, which is arguably Canada's biggest online pre-arrival mentorship program that connects you with an experienced professional in the same field as you that can serve as a mentor to you even before you arrive. So you're able to have one-on-one virtual sessions with your mentor. They talk to you about the industry, insights you need to have into the local industry that can help you with making your own decisions that will help you transition, into that industry in Canada. And you can also even leverage their connections where those are available to find opportunities in your field. So these supports are available for free, and you have the post-arrival variant of those services, so that when you've landed in your destination city, the support continues. You're not left to your own devices. You have support, employment counseling, settlement counseling. Look at African Connect, what they're doing. A lot of families affected by COVID-19, they're getting hampers, for free. All of this is for food, everything. I mean, these are very minor considerations because you have organizations like African Connect Society and other, such organizations helping immigrants, just to lessen the burden that a relocation, the impact of a relocation on families. So make sure, be mindful of that, be aware of that there are settlement services available to you for free to support your relocation to Canada. And a lot of people have these services to thank, for their success. A lot of people, including myself, have these, settlement services to thank for their seamless transition to life and work in Canada. So yes, that's it. So I'm just going to run through, the 7 points I shared. One is you want to manage your expectations, before you come to Canada. It's okay to have lofty expectations, but you have to make arrangements for eventualities that do not match your expectations. Then your mindset is your biggest asset. You want to keep positive, and you want to surround yourself with a strong support system that will continue to fuel your positivity and your optimism. The third is networking. You want to develop networking skills. And I already mentioned there are settlement services that offer courses to help you develop networking skills. So and they also offer networking events post arrival when you've landed in your destination city. So networking is important. It's the most effective way that you can access job opportunities in the hidden job market, job opportunities that don't appear on the career pages of company websites or on job sites. Then the third is soft skills. Canadian employers place a high premium on your soft skills, even above your technical skills, your academic qualifications, and all of that. You want to learn how to manage conflict, how to get along with people at work, develop intercultural competence. You want to learn how to handle feedback that is uncomplimentary at work. Then choosing a destination, it's not enough to choose a destination for fanciful reasons. You have to have concrete arrangements, like cost of living has to be considered, the labor market, the kinds of job opportunities that are predominant in that market. Then if you have family and friends, that's a plus because you need all the support you can get to settle in, and of course educational opportunities. And then the sixth is career flexibility. You want to be open to exploring opportunities wherever they present, not necessarily in the specific field in which you worked before you came. You want to be open to exploring opportunities that present in other fields where you perhaps do not even have any experience, but you just might have transferable skills that can position you for success in those fields. And there is nothing you cannot learn. You can learn, you can grow, you can learn an entirely new skill and become an amazing success in a new field. So you have to be open to that possibility. And finally, there are settlement services like African Connect Society, like the Settlement Online Pre-Arrival Program that I work with. All of these services are available to you for free to help support your relocation to Canada. Once you've received approval from IRCC to immigrate to Canada, you're able to access these services, and they are all for free. They are available to you. They are here to serve you. We're here to serve you, Inimo and I, and all of the other industry colleagues, to make sure that we have more successful immigrants in Canada. There's a lot more I could talk about, but let's keep it brief, right?
Thank you so much, Bamidele. This was so insightful. You know, in my intro, I was like, oh, maybe questions about bring this is the food you're going to eat, but you took us to a very different angle, and we love it. It was so good. I feel like, I mean, for some of us, it was different because we went through the international student route,
Yep.
and then we became immigrants. So we didn't get to access all this information. We were just already in the system. So we never got a letter to say, go to this settlement agencies. You're already in the system, so you know how we do it. So if I had had this information some time back, it would have been so helpful. I hope that people listen to the points that you made, especially with the soft skills. I know we've had conversations about this. It's very important. I think we need just a whole another month to talk about soft skills. It's so important. Soft skills in the Canadian, it's like you cannot be in a Canadian working environment and not have soft skills and decide to keep to yourself, not relate with, it doesn't work. You'll be thrown out. You'll be excluded from the place. Important. And there was this point that you make about being intentional about the people you keep around you. It is very, very important that I know that for some of us, we are learning it now, but you have to be very intentional. People that are going to keep you positive, people that are going to encourage you, regardless of what you are going through. Thank you. Thank you so much. And then this is a compliment. Said, I like this guy. I have been down a little this week, but this guy has really motivated me. Tell him I said, good job done.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So we have lots of questions coming up. Hopefully we'll be able to go through most of them. So, okay, the first one here said, please, so I think, okay, I'm going to summarize this. I'm going to paraphrase. Sorry if you are watching, but I'm going to paraphrase your question. So I think they are asking, they're in the process of applying for a permanent resident. Do they need a job to be able to immigrate, or do they come in before they start looking for a job? Because this is permanent resident, they are coming permanently. So what is your advice on that?
No, it depends on the immigration pathway. If you're immigrating through the express entry program, you're not required to have a job, right, before you come. You get to start finding a job, excuse me, after you're approved or after you've landed. That's when you begin to find a job, So very few people who immigrate through the express entry program are able to secure jobs before arrival. Very few. And you know this, for a Canadian company to hire anyone from outside of Canada, they have to show that the labor market, I mean, they cannot access professionals locally who can do that job. So you need like a labor market impact assessment. That is not required for the express entry immigration stream. You don't require that. So yours is to apply, and then once you get approved, to immigrate, then you can begin finding a job online. You can leverage the support of settlement services pre-arrival, and they will put you through on how to go about finding a job even before you come, and of course after you land. But you don't need a job before you come, except you're immigrating through the Atlantic Immigration Program, pilot program, I think it's called. So for that one, you need employment even before you are approved to come to Canada. I mean, the employer has to submit a labor market impact assessment and then show that they cannot hire anyone locally to do the job. Once that is proven, then the Canadian government will approve, your immigration to Canada. That's where you need it. But for the other streams, express entry, like skilled worker, provincial nominee, you don't need those. You don't need employment before you come.
Okay, thank you. So one is asking, how do we know the cities that offer the jobs in our career path?
Yes. So what you do, for example, a lot of people usually have their preferred cities, perhaps because they have friends who live there or friends who are going there. So what you do, every the websites, if you're from Nigeria, the government websites are not like our government websites in Nigeria. The government websites of Canadian provincial governments or the federal government or the municipal government, which is the equivalent of the local government in many other places, those websites are huge resource centers. If you go to their websites, you will see labor market information on those websites. So if you say you want to come to Calgary, if you go to the website of the city of Calgary or to the website of the government of Alberta, or you just enter labor markets, Alberta, you will see in the search results, the website of the government of Alberta and other websites exploring the labor markets in Alberta. So if you do that for other cities across Canada, you will get the same results. So then you can read through and see what kinds of opportunities are prevalent or dominant in those cities.
Okay, thank you. Great job, sir. Wonderful information. I gained a lot today. So that is a compliment. Well done. Can we increase the frequency of the sessions? We do this once a month. We have videos from since May. We've done how to immigrate into Canada. We had an immigration consultant come to tell us the different routes and what we need for each route. So we have a lot of sessions on our Facebook page, African Connect Society. So please go there and you find it there. Thank you, Mr. Bamidele. This is very interesting. Please, how can we use this medium to, okay, we cannot use this medium to apply for Canadian immigration. We are not certified to speak on Canadian immigration. When you go to the canada.ca website, there's information there, and we have an in-house certified immigration consultant. His details is on our Facebook page. He can provide you more insight. We cannot talk on that because we are not certified to speak on that. That is what Mr. Bamidele was talking about. Most work is regulated and you need to be certified to be able to speak on that. We are not certified to speak on how to apply for Canadian immigration. We can support you after you've gotten approval to come in. Okay, so how do you get to know about all the networking events that you are talking about? That is a question.
Awesome. So, like I said, it's very important. There's a lot you cannot know about on your own, right? So that is why you need settlement services to point you in the right direction. You will suffer from information overwhelm if you're trying to access information randomly online. You will get misinformation, you will get disinformation, and you will get too much information, and then you will be overwhelmed. You will not be able to process what you're seeing. So what happens when you register for pre-arrival settlement services after you've been approved? Very important. After you've submitted your application, right? And you've passed your medical and all of those, you get your UCI. So at that stage, there's a stage where IRCC will send you a letter to receive pre-arrival services. So when you register for the pre-arrival services, we then begin to inform you of webinars, virtual networking events that are happening pre-arrival. And then after you land in Canada and we hand you over to our post-arrival colleagues, then they will continue the job of sending you email notifications of post-arrival networking events happening in your destination city. So for example, in Calgary, CCIS, which is Calgary Catholic Immigration Society, which is the parent organization for the program I work on, has a networking program that holds monthly networking events at the Calgary Petroleum Club. So if you're registered with CCIS after you land, we send you a notification in your email that a networking event is coming up on so and so dates, and so time. So make yourself available. And then at those events, we bring other immigrant professionals who are successful in Calgary. We bring business owners, who are immigrants. We bring other even Canadian-born professionals just to help you diversify, and strengthen your professional network so you can access opportunities here. Another useful tool, I can just share some tools like Eventbrite is very key, but you will need location settings. If you set your location to maybe Calgary, then you begin to see, and then you set up notifications for networking events in Calgary. You'll begin to see notifications of upcoming networking events, and then you can register to apply. I think there's meetups. Is it Meetup or something like that? There's a website called Meetup. You can just Google Meetup. You'll see for your local, for your city. It may not be Calgary. It could be anywhere in Canada. You will see information of upcoming meetups, even for professionals. Some of them are industry specific. So it could be a meetup for engineers, a meetup for feminists, a meetup for Christians, a meetup. So they have all kinds of meetups. So obviously you don't want to restrict your networking to just your profession. You want connections can happen anywhere. The link that will lead to the outcome you're looking for can come from, it can come from church. It can come from your local community association. For example, in Calgary, we have the Nigerian Canadian Association of Calgary. In Edmonton, same. In Toronto, everywhere you have the Ghanaian Association, you have the Kenyan Association, you have the Indian Association. So in a connection at any of those associations, if you're active in there and you make friends there, can refer you for an opportunity. It can come from church, it can come from a mosque, it can come from anywhere you go. You can come from, you also want to engage, with random people. You can come from a party. You just want to be outgoing, and engage with people everywhere you find them.
Okay, so I think the answer that you just gave answers this, because the question was, how can you leverage networking and any available platform to get access on, but then you already answered it. So someone says, well done, Dele, you've ignited me more. Thanks for this information, Big Bam. So I don't know if you know this person personally, because Big Bam is like a pet name. Thanks, Bamidele Enenimwa. Please, can you share the Facebook page here? We will share it. Another question is, what does childcare entail aside schooling? So probably this person was like, oh my goodness, so I can't bring a maid to take care of my child. So apart from my children going to school, what does childcare entail?
Well, it depends on the city you're living in. You have different childcare options. You have day homes, you have daycare centers, you have preschool programs, you have after school programs. So it depends on your own schedule, and what you're looking for, wherever you are, whatever city you're in. What's important is that there's a cost, and it's usually significant. The younger your child, the more you pay in childcare. And which is why a lot of immigrants quickly, if they have kids or if they're having a baby soon, they quickly apply for their parents, to come over, because that will sort of lessen the financial burden on them. Their parents can help with looking after the kids while they work. If they're going back to work, they can help them with looking after the kids. So that saves the money they would have expended on childcare. When you're making a choice of childcare, you're looking at things like the safety and health and safety of the facility, the kinds of activities the kids engage in, the kind of food they serve them, the age of the kids, how many kids they serve, the qualifications of the people working with the kids. Those are some of the things you want to look out for. The good thing is that a lot of governments, I'm not very conversant with what happens in other provinces, but in Alberta, the government of Alberta provides childcare subsidy. So if you're within a certain income range, you're eligible for subsidy. So the government will cover part of the cost of childcare just to lessen the financial burden on your family. So they can sometimes, depending on your financial situation, they might cover up to half, sometimes even slightly above half of the cost of childcare. All of this information you will get when you register for pre-arrival services. They will give you destination-specific information.
Okay, so this question reminds me of a friend and I had this talk. So his husband was in the train one day coming from work, and someone called from back home, and he was like, "So where are you?" He said, "Oh, I'm in a train going." I said, "Ah, Oga, you a whole Oga that had drivers driving you. You are in the train going to work." So it just brings back the point when you say we should manage our expectation. This was someone who had drivers for his wife, drivers for himself, and now he was in a train, bumped with other people going back. When the person was so surprised, like, "Oh God, you are in the train. Like, how can you be in the train?"
Welcome to Canada.
The partner is on this platform, so probably she's smiling, hearing me share this story. But yeah, so this is what you are appreciated.
Let me
Looking
say
forward.
something here,
Mhm.
Enimwa, in response to that. Now, we live in Calgary, Enimwa and I. Calgary statistically has the highest number of millionaires in Canada. Obviously, this is the oil and gas capital. So there's a lot of oil money, you know, oil wealth here in Calgary. And you could be sitting next to a multi-millionaire on the train and you would never know that, except maybe you've seen him in the news or you've read, you won't know. Like, I have a friend who works at, he's a salesman at a company that sells mattresses. And he said someone came in and initially, they wanted to sort of dismiss this individual and say, what kind of a person is it? Like, he was dressed shabbily,
No
but
designer, anything.
exactly, no designer, no nothing. He was dressed shabbily. And sorry, Canadians, we don't have a good fashion sense. So he was dressed shabbily. And then guess what? This guy bought a mattress of $30,000
Uh-huh.
cash. He didn't even use a credit card.
Mattress
Cash,
to sleep on, 30,000.
$30,000.
30,000 Canadian choppable dollars.
So I tell people, like, I've been working in downtown, which is the heart of Calgary, which is where all the HQs are, the banks, the oil and gas companies, their HQs are there. I don't think I've ever seen a chauffeur-driven vehicle. Like, you could see an Uber, it's an Uber, but I don't see like a Rolls Royce, being chauffeur-driven. Then the big man is at the back. I've not seen it
They're in
in
the train.
in almost 3 years of living in Calgary. I have not seen a chauffeur-driven Rolls Royce, Lamborghini, or any kind of. I mean, I see those cars. I see people drive them. Ferrari, they drive it themselves. But I've not seen it like a chauffeur-driven. And it's not like people can't afford it, but it's just the lifestyle. It's the culture. It's the way
So,
things are. They don't rub wealth in your face.
so networking can even happen in the train because you never know who you are sitting close to.
Exactly. Networking can happen on the train.
Anywhere.
Let me tell a story here. There's a guy who used to work in oil and gas. We work with a lot of oil and gas professionals on SOPA. So this guy, he got a security job at the airport. These guys will screen your luggage, before you go into the as you land in the airport. So apparently he was an oil and gas engineer back home, but here he couldn't get a job, so he was doing that temporarily until he could secure a job. And guess what? The CEO of one of the major oil and gas companies here walks in with his luggage, and then as he's screening his luggage, good thing for him, he had been educating himself, about the industry in Canada, so he knew the people. Very
Ha!
important. You need
Yes.
to know the people. You need to know the people in your industry, in your city, because you may run into them. So he knew the figures, the primary figures. So this man walks in with his luggage, and then he begins to engage the man in a conversation. If you're familiar with Canadian, lifestyle, small talk happens a lot.
Weather. How is the weather?
Will be the richest man in the world, and then the man at the gates will be having a fantastic conversation with you. There's no inferiority complex, or anything. You're just having a smooth conversation. So he engages this man in a conversation, and the man was shocked at the level of knowledge that this guy had about him, the industry, and all of that. So it's like, what are you doing here? He said, I just moved to Canada. I'm doing this temporarily, until I can secure a job. And then the man gives him his card.
Yeah.
And he's like, get in touch with me, and that was it. That was how he got his first, industry job in Canada. So, it's important to note that you need to know the people in your industry. You could run
Network.
into them anywhere and then be ready to engage them in a conversation.
So this one says you are appreciated. Looking forward to more sessions. So this is to tell you that Bamidele is going to start a podcast and a YouTube channel. When all the details are set, we'll put it on our YouTube page, and he's going to talk a lot about this. So if you want more sessions, you can go to his YouTube channel and his podcast, and you can come here as well. So he will have his own thing going on, and we have our own thing, but you get all the same information. So that is looking forward to more sessions. So please let us know when you get your details and we will share them. Okay, so superb oratory skills, Bamidele. Smooth presentation. He used to work in the media. Thumbs up, brother. I don't quite get the info you gave out about the mentorship groups. Are there links with which one can join those, especially the one for IT professionals, before landing in Canada? If there are, please kindly share. I think it's giving an answer to this. When you're approved to come in and you get
Yeah.
in touch with the settlement agencies, they'll
Yeah.
give all those links.
They don't work with just everybody. You have to have been approved. There are eligibility documents that you will need to submit when you're registering, for the programs for you to access those services. So once you've begun your application process and you're approved by IRCC, or IRCC has sent you a letter that you can now receive pre-arrival services, then you will be pointed in the right direction of where to go, where to register, and how to access those services.
Okay, thank you very much. So this person is asking that they're already working with a different pre-arrival organization. Do they need to connect with another one, or they should stay with whatever organization they are dealing with? Are they going to get different information or same information?
Yes, because a lot of the organizations will give you random generalized information about Canada. SOPA specifically, Settlement Online Pre-Arrival Program, will give you city specific, not just even province specific, but city specific preparation, information for settling, information for finding employment. You will get employment counseling one-on-one that is tailored to the city you're going to be settling in. And of course, you're going to have preparatory courses that you're going to learn by doing the things you will actually be doing when you begin your actual job search. So it's very important to note.
Okay, so we have two questions, then we are done because it's almost 2:30. So the last but one, what about health insurance in Canada?
Okay.
Yeah, that is the question.
So Canada offers universal health coverage. Now, in some provinces, you're able to access that immediately after you land, like Alberta, the province in which we live. You're able to, that's one of the attractions for a lot of people to Alberta. As soon as you arrive, in fact, early as the next day after you arrive, even on the same day, if you have the time, or you have all the required documents, you can apply for the Alberta Healthcare Insurance Plan. Every province in Canada has a name for their own program. In Alberta, it's called the Alberta Healthcare Insurance Plan. Now, what does it cover? It covers all your consultations with your family doctor, regardless of how many consultations you have in a year. You don't pay for it, it's free. It covers all your consultations with specialists as may be recommended by your family doctor. So gynecologists, pediatricians, all of that. If your family doctor is referring you to any of those, it's covered under the plan. It covers hospital visits. So if you have an emergency, unlike in most other countries, clinics have closing hours here. So after closing hours, you may not be, except you have a personal relationship with your family doctor, you may not be able to reach your doctor, and you cannot go to the clinic because they would have closed. So if you have an emergency, you're expected, if it's serious and you cannot get yourself to a hospital, you're expected to dial 911. If it's not that serious, but you still require medical attention, you're expected to drive yourself or get yourself to the nearest hospital, the emergency room. So such visits are free. Hospital stays. So maybe you're having a baby, you're sick, and you're admitted to the hospital, all of that. Hospital stays, including feeding and drugs administered during a hospital stay, are also free to you. Blood tests, medical examinations, MRIs, CT scans, ultrasounds, mammograms, all of these are free under this plan. Then what else? Medically required surgeries. So if you need a surgery, you just go to the hospital. Your doctor recommends you for a surgery. The time is set. You go, you do your surgery, you leave. You don't pay. You just show your health card. And yeah, I think that's about it. So what's not free under the plan? Things like dental, vision, prescription medication. If your doctor writes you prescription, you have to buy that out of pocket at a pharmacy, or some orthopedic, some other stuff, massage therapy. All of these things are not covered under this plan. You have to pay for those out of pocket, or you take out private health insurance that can help you cover that. Or if you're working, once you're employed, your employer will, most likely be offering health benefits that cover these other things that aren't covered under the universal plan, which is what many of us enjoy.
Mhm. Thank you so much, Mr. Bamidele, Miss Enimwa, and all who made this possible. God bless you all. We look forward to the YouTube channel. Don't you have a name yet? Dele,
No,
everyone wants to
not
subscribe
yet, but
to
soon.
our channel. So whenever you get the information, please share with us.
I will.
Please go like our Facebook page. We have a YouTube channel as well, Afri-can Connect. We'll put the link on our Facebook. As soon as Bamidele has details on his podcast and his YouTube channel, we will put it there so that we can all go there and support him and learn. He's going to share pre-arrival and after arrival and everything. So the last question before we go is almost 3 minutes more. What about age consideration for jobs? Does it also apply in Canada?
Age consideration
for jobs.
So when you get to the workplace, you will find that there's diversity. You'll find people across ages, across sexes, across sexual orientation, across cultures, in the workplace. So Canada celebrates diversity. That's not to say that you will not find, the odd employer who practices ageism. That's not to say, but the predominant narrative is that Canada, and everyone knows this, supports multiculturalism and supports diversity across different demographies. So you might encounter it, but it doesn't mean that you will not find opportunities, even for your age, regardless of how old you are. So it depends on what employer.
Thank you very much. I mean, I don't know if you listened to my intro. I was so start on, or what is he going to talk about? Because I just said, come and share with us your knowledge. I didn't know the tips and strategies. Oh, maybe don't bring a jacket and you can buy a better jacket here. Or there's African stores and you can get authentic Gary here to eat.
Oh yeah, there are those as well,
I know. So, those are some of the questions that people would have. Oh, should I bring yam? Should I put yam in my suitcase?
Yeah.
Should I get yam to buy? How long will my food last? And all that. But then you took us to a different level and we appreciate it. We are so grateful that you were able to come here and speak with us. Afri-can Connect, everyone is giving me positive feedback. The team is telling me, let's connect with Bamidele. We can do a lot of things. We are open for collaborations with you as you also move on to support our community. We wish you well. And please don't hesitate to share your details with us so that we can tell all the people. We have over 30 people here. We have people watching us live on Facebook so that we can share your details with them. And we'll all swim over to your pages and support you. Yeah. So thank you very much, Bamidele.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for everyone who joined in. I wish you success, on your immigration application journey.
Also, there's a last question.
Okay.
That just came. Healthcare insurance for international students with kids, is it free? So those who come as international students.
You'll be able to answer that. I'm not really
familiar with it. It's the same thing. Initially, when you come in, you could get access to healthcare the same day, because when I came in, I got access the same day. But now I think it takes a while because I think there were issues with people coming in through the international student route to have babies and going back. And so now it takes, I don't know, the last time I heard you need to be in the system for a while, but I know that with permanent resident, you get it as soon as you arrive. So it's the same thing, you get the same deal if you're an international student, because I think I got the same deal when I arrived. So next month, we are going to have a financial advisor come to talk to us about how to manage your credit. So I know that people come here, they get a credit card and like, it's shopping time. Let me show people that I have arrived. No, you need to build your credit so you can buy a house and all that, and how to manage your finances, especially during this period of COVID, because COVID has taught us a lot. COVID has taught us that nothing is permanent. People have lost their jobs. And so next month, the last Saturday of next month, we are going to talk about finances, managing your finances. If you're a newcomer that is coming, how to manage your finances and how to build up your credit when you arrive. So please come, we will share the information on our Facebook page. Come and join us as we talk about that. Also, if you're already in Canada and you're an African immigrant, so far as you're an African and you're in Canada and you've been impacted by COVID, whether an international student or a single mom, we are going to give out Christmas hampers. We are not going to celebrate Christmas with you because of COVID, but we are going to make sure that you have food on your table. So we are going to give you hampers that you can prepare meals from and have a good Christmas. So look out for details on our Christmas hamper COVID support for people that have been impacted by COVID. But then until next month, thank you so much for joining us and have a good month. See you. Bye-bye. And please take care. I know that people think that COVID is gone. No, we are getting into the next stage. We might get a lockdown soon. So please protect yourself and take care. Bye-bye.
Yeah.